it was just changed 70 years ago. And again, we're told that the church had it wrong the whole time. It developed just as the liberals were getting power. Give me a break.
I love when you get fired up. Welcome to the Trendline.
Support us by subscribing, liking, sharing. What else do people say?
Subscribe, like, comment, share. It makes a really big difference. I didn't realize that until we started our own channel.
Yeah. On YouTube, 65% of the audience is not subscribed, or of watchers.
I put up a question box last week, and I got to some of them, but there are so many more, and some of them I actually purposely saved for today's episode. So we're just going to go through them.
Holy smokes.
Yeah, there are a lot.
Yeah.
How do you handle being away from your family with the intention of having many kids? We live near Kyle's family. We focus more on the environment than, more on the environment than being near family. But we do always hope to be near some family in some aspect. Where to start with homeschooling? I feel like there's so much out there. Yes. We're going to do a whole episode on homeschooling. We got this question. We actually did answer this in the Q&A video in the car, but we're going to do a whole episode with my mom, hopefully, because she's so knowledgeable. But my number one thing I tell people, like when I meet someone at the park or pool and tell them I'm homeschooling, they're like, oh, that's so crazy. When I was at the splash pad yesterday or the day before, this lady was like, that's so brave of you to homeschool with a baby. But my main response is always, it's not as hard as you think. It's not school at home. Yeah. It's a very short amount of time, especially at this age, it's a very short amount of time a day. I would just focus on the most important things for us has been reading, writing, catechism, and we're going to start doing a little bit of math. We do not have any kind of formal curriculum yet. Okay, are you in a women's group for study? I am not. I've been invited to Bible studies before, but I've just never been attracted to the idea of, I don't know. I've never felt the need to do that. If I ever have a question or want to reflect on anything or whatever, then I usually talk to you about it or try to find just a really good, solid, more objective.
Right. What you mean by it is something like woman specific, meaning you don't feel like you have a need to be like, oh, I want to learn about the faith or talk about the faith together with women, is what you're saying.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I think when I think of a Bible study, I think of, you're focusing on a chapter or a verse or a few verses. Mm-hmm. And then you kind of say oh, what does this mean to you? Mm-hmm. Or how does it make you feel? It's it's a little too, I think, sentimental for me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've always struggled with Bible studies as well. For that reason, whether men or women, because a lot of times it devolves into what does this mean to you? Yeah. Sort of thing.
Yeah. I'm sure there's a way you could do it where it would be I would enjoy it, but I've just never really found that. And I just don't feel the need for it particularly. I'd get together with a group of women and just hang out.
Yeah.
It's finally moved to an area with a local TLM. I've done a lot of research, but any extra advice for a first timer?
Okay. So first timer. And actually, this kind of reminds me. I do, especially after that last little clip on Instagram, and we get so many comments it's just your preference and stuff. I was thinking, actually doing a few more episodes, actually specifically on the Mass, would be good. Yeah, for a first timer, look up the dress code. I think it's always important to dress modestly to go into Mass, no matter where you are. But a lot of folks, maybe are not in the normal habit, and I think some people can feel awkward when they get there. Actually, speaking of that, just as an aside, it was actually pretty cool. A friend of mine in Pittsburgh, he came to our parish. At the time, I did not know this, that he came. So he and his family, I worked with him in Pittsburgh in 2015, 16, and he was a normal, Orthodox Catholic, going to the Novus Ordo, etc., but call it lukewarm. So he came and went to Mass. It was a feast day. I forget why, but they were staying on Siesta Key as a family vacation. He went to Mass at Christ the King, and he was wearing like board shorts and a T-shirt. And he stuck out like a sore thumb, and he kind of felt weird and whatever, but he stayed. And anyway, so now he's actually he went back to Mass every day the rest of the week because he was so enamored with the Latin Mass. And then now his family goes to Precious Blood Parish in Pittsburgh, which is Institute.
That's cool.
Yeah, and it's funny how things go that way because so 2015-16 is like when I started getting, I guess you could say like more and more traditional and everything with the theology especially. And so we would talk a lot about it. And I had been trying to get him to go to Latin Mass. But anyway, so it's funny because just completely separately. But so my point is that, it's a little bit different the way that you or the group dresses. And so it's something to not sort of, make you feel weird or something. He was like so ashamed of how he was dressed that it kind of pricked his conscience, which is kind of cool. But for a lot of people, it also can make them, too focused on that. And, am I being watched? Are people judging me, etc.? So just to make it easier on yourself to not think about that. Yeah. Then the other thing is I would say is don't worry too much about following along. Just try to go along, soak it in. Obviously, we've said so many times is if you can go to a high mass or a solemn high mass, go to that. Just because, it's more, it's like a fuller presentation of the mass, but, it's also less confusing, I guess, because you can't really hear the priest in low mass and all that sort of stuff. And pray the mass and don't worry too much about getting things right or saying the Latin, whatever. I don't know if I've ever said this before. Actually, what's really cool is at the consecration. So Padre Pio used to say, did I ever say this in one of the podcast episodes? Mm-mm. So Padre Pio used to say, he would always say, like when during the consecration at the offering and things, like in your mind's eye, see yourself at the foot of the cross. Mm-hmm. And I would always do this, and this, I heard this, whatever it was, 15 years ago or something. And I'd always think, what does that even mean? Mm-hmm. Like how? And not because that's like I couldn't imagine the foot of the cross, but it was more during the offertory, during the consecration, there's so much back and forth between the priest and the people that I was like, when do you get the opportunity to like meditate this? Yeah. And I remember very distinctly going to the Latin Mass early on and having that realization like, oh, this is where I can really think about and meditate on what's happening because it's primarily silent, that whole time. And so I think, just soak those things in is just kind of off the top of my head. If
you have time to watch Mass of the Ages, people like doing that as well. You kind of get a little bit of it's just really interesting, primer. First of all. Yeah, and it's one of those things, like if you watch a movie or a show about a certain place or a certain thing or whatever, you're like, oh, I want to go there now. Yeah. You kind of get that with watching
that's a good point.
Mass of the Ages. So that would be good too. Well, are we going to do the veiling one? About veiling?
Sure.
Yeah, I always get questions on veiling.
Presented by Big Easy Pop. Not actually.
Sponsor us, Big Easy Pop.
If you want.
It's actually really good. A lot of women still kind of approach it as like it's right for some women, it's not right for others.
Yes, that's true.
Or they treat it as like a devotion, which it's not a devotion.
Right.
I've seen a lot of people say like veiling is a devotion, just like it's like no, it's not a devotion.
Not. Yeah. First of all, of course, technically, the church. It's a weird thing, right? Because clearly the tradition, even in the Bible, St. Paul outwardly he commands it. And the church has never said you're free from this command, but the church has said that it's not sinful. So it was always tradition. 1917 Code of Canon Law made it a requirement. 1983 lifted it, but with the lifting of the 1983, along with the liberalization of everything else, that's one of the things that rule was lifted, and so it kind of became the norm, which is unfortunate. But yeah, it is a acknowledgement of the order of things, right? So God, man, woman. So it's a sign of submission. St. John Chrysostom, it's in one of his homilies, but he basically says, it's not for the glory of man, but for the glory of God that a woman covers her head. It's a sign of submission, a sign of humility. It's not a devotional. It's really meant to be an outward sign of that, inward reality. So it's not a devotional. It's not something you're called to or that you'll feel called to. It's not something that you should, again, in terms of canonically speaking, you have the freedom to not do it, but
doesn't mean it's right to not do it.
Correct. Yeah, it's not sinful. It doesn't mean that it's correct, or that by discerning for yourself that it's not a good fit or it's not right, that is a correct discernment. And by the way, but when I say veil, what I really mean is covering the head.
Yeah.
Like the U.S. as an example, it was much more common that women would wear hats. Mm-hmm. At least in kind of in the 20th century. I think the other thing with spirituality is if something that's objectively good, there are certain things within a person's spiritual life that you could say, okay, something is objectively good, but for me right now, it's not a good thing to do, right? Mm-hmm. Like, so for instance, if somebody's very scrupulous, normally going to confession often is a good thing, right? It's a sacrament. It helps you with your sin, etc. But a priest might say, a spiritual director might say to somebody, hey, you're scrupulous. So it's actually better for you to go longer in between so that you're...
Really?
Yeah.
Oh,
you're
interesting.
Yeah, so that you are guarding against your scrupulosity, etc. Because, of course...
Because when you examine your conscience, you're sitting there...
Right.
Mulling everything over.
Yeah, exactly. So that is just a sort of thing where it would be better for them to not do that thing. Now, mm-hmm. They're not doing something wrong, right? So that's another key distinction where it's omitting something good, right? Mm-hmm. Where in that particular sense, so that's where you might separate out the veiling from that, because somebody might say, hey, for me, it's better not to veil.
Some common things I see are like, oh, I was like just messing with my veil the whole time.
Yeah, messing with my veil. I know some people say too is like, especially if there's some place that there's not a lot of veiling, they'll say, I don't want to stick out.
Yeah, it made me feel more immodest. I've seen.
Yeah, more immodest. I've also seen like, I don't want to do it just because everybody else is doing it because it's fake, that sort of thing. So like, again, that's where I think this is more of an objective territory, because not only does St. Paul say it, but the fathers of the church are unanimous about saying the importance of it. And again, it was taught through tradition as important. And again, that has never really been lifted, right? So again, the church has the authority to say, it's not sinful to do so. But again, as you said, right, it's like, it doesn't mean it's right. Mm-hmm. And those sorts of things, like in those sorts of commands, those are sorts of things that it's not really like up for discernment. Unlike the confession where it's like you're omitting the good thing, like where, it's like more of the confession is generally good, right? Where it's like not veiling is not a good. It's like an allowed thing, mm-hmm. right? So it'd be similar to when we talk about receiving in the hand versus receiving on the tongue. Is it a sin to receive in the hand? No. Is it a good thing in relation to receiving on the tongue? To receive in the hand? Also no. Can you say, can somebody say from a theological perspective, it's better for me personally to receive on the hand versus on the tongue? No, not really. And, you know, to kind of go that way is just getting into subjectivism, right? It's like how this affects me is what the truth of the thing is.
Right.
Right.
Where it's really the opposite.
Right. Yeah. Where that what do you call it? Like that reality should inform how you act versus, or your interior disposition versus the other way around.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah. Yeah, it's kind of like saying, I know I should, like, it's more modest to wear a one piece, but when I go to the pool and everyone's wearing a two piece, I feel more modest because I stick out in a one piece.
Yeah, no, that's
so I'll just wear the two piece.
Right. No, that's for that particular line of argument, that's a very good thing, right? So like things have.
It's like, no, being modest is just objectively better.
Right.
Doesn't matter what other people are
and
doing.
Being, within modesty or anything really in like from a moral perspective is that there's an objective reality. Right?
Yeah.
So there are objective things within modesty, right? Like there are objective things
right.
in submission or humility, right? Like so for instance, even if you don't feel humble doing something, something is an act of humility, right? Like so wearing a veil, covering the head, that is an act of humility.
No matter how you feel.
Whether you feel. Now, the merit of it, the level of the act, meaning like, because if your intention is like, I hate this or I don't submit, then like your interior disposition is not humble and that's bad.
Yeah.
But the outward sign is still that, right? Like, so it's the same thing with genuflecting as an example. Even if you're doing it absentmindedly, like you're making an outward sign with your body, acknowledging the objective reality, which is Jesus is present, he's the king, you kneel.
Yeah.
If in your heart you're like, I shouldn't have to kneel, then there is no merit in what you're doing, but it's like, it's still
the
proper
to
do it, right? So like when you cross the tabernacle, you should do it no matter how you feel about it.
Yeah, that's a good point too, is it's like, it's kind of like someone saying, oh, if I'm late to mass and I just want to get in the pew, if I genuflect, then that's distracting or I'll stick out.
Yeah, actually.
But most people, I mean, I don't know anyone who actually is going to truly forego genuflecting.
Right. And it's actually funny. So somewhat of a similar example, by the way, is it's traditional that women wear black, except for a few princesses and queens and things, when they meet the Pope. And it's also traditional that women veil when they meet the Pope. Again, it's like those are signs of submission and humility. And because we have that immediate feedback from a person, right, which is like, hey, I'm supposed to, like, protocol is that I wear black. And it very well could be. I didn't know that about
meeting the Pope. When you meet the Pope, you're supposed to wear black?
Yeah.
Women are?
That's why if you look, you can see, like, queens of, like, Spain and where else? Like, Liechtenstein or Luxembourg. There's several that have, I forget what it's called. It's in French, but it's essentially like the privilege of white. I forget what it's called, but it's like they're allowed to wear white when they meet the Pope.
Interesting.
But that's my point, though, right? Or like same thing actually if you're in Rome, in Italy. It's always funny because like they won't let women wear shorts or pants in the churches, right? Or I'm sorry, they'll let them wear pants. They won't let them wear shorts
above the knee
or skirts above the knee. Yeah, exactly. And so what they'll have at some places is they'll have like these little paper skirts.
Yeah.
Or I think, they'll have, they might say something, oh, you have a jacket, whatever.
Tie around. Yeah.
So that's a perfect example where it's like, you could make the argument, say, listen, this is going to distract me in my prayer. Like, I'm going to be fiddling with this the whole time, and I'm going to be wearing this thing, and I'm the only one wearing this.
It's all I'm going to think about the whole time I'm in there.
Right. It's the only thing I'm going to think about the whole time I'm in there. And that may be true, right? But like, that is a deficiency in you that this is, is bringing to bear, essentially, right? It's like it's still right to wear those
The paper
things.
skirt.
Right. To cover yourself below the knee. And again, it would be a similar situation where, again, the church doesn't have the same, call it, modesty standards that it once did. So even if you could say, okay, well, it's not necessarily sinful, that doesn't mean that it's good or right, right? So, yeah, I think that is actually a pretty good comparison in terms of that thing. So what is the short story, or what is the long and short of the story? It is women should veil, and, despite how you feel, and if you do have some of those feelings, keeping in mind that what the objective reality is, and working on correcting the deficiencies in virtue in your own soul to get to that point, right? Because it's not for me doesn't really apply. Like I said, I think actually, now that I'm thinking about it, I mean, the hand is good, but I think this Vatican one is kind of the perfect example, because like they actually don't let you, right?
Yeah.
Like if you said to them, listen, I'm not going to be able to pray if I wear this, they'd be like, then you're not going in, right?
And the funny thing is you will be able to pray.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, that's the other thing.
I think for some women it can be hard because you might like really not want to veil, and you're kind of looking for anything to kind of use as a reasoning instead of just saying, well, I don't want to because I don't like it. I didn't want to. I didn't like it until I did it. And
right, but even if it didn't change for you when you started doing it.
Right, yeah.
But yeah, and I think I've been saying I want to go into spirituality and prayer and things, but subjectivism versus, for lack of a better term, objectivism, meaning sentimentality, subjectivism, personalism, versus just, I guess, what we would say like realism, or I guess what's represented by Thomism, is a big dichotomy in the church where we're focusing way too much on subjectivism, way too much on sentimentality, and this is especially true in women. When they are praying and developing their spiritual lives left to their own devices. And even frankly, I mean, so many priests are this way too. But it becomes a very difficult thing to get right when you think that something is dependent on yourself, which is what you're saying when you're saying this thing is this, but it's not for me, right? So actually, just real quick on the subjectivism piece, there is a young guy. So we posted in the last video, there was a part about the SSPX, posted a clip on it of Instagram, right? So you obviously get all of the, especially Gen Z people who don't know what they're talking about, who, do their comments, whatever. But there's one who's like, I had this really bad experience in SSPX, and, all this stuff happened. And then for me, he said, and you've never been in SSPX. You even said you've never been to one of their chapels, and therefore you don't know what you're talking about. And, you can't have a proper opinion.
Yeah.
And so my response to him was, the reason I'm saying that I didn't go, because the point of it is these things are objective, right? So you can look at the facts of the matter. Now, it's not to discount his experience or say, I'm not saying, of course, everybody has a great experience, or SSPX has never done anything wrong, or, whatever. It's the point of it is of that whole video was they're not in schism. It doesn't behoove you to be charging them with schism, and that's it.
Yeah.
Right. So
right.
What?
Your collar.
So anyway, but the fact that his mind is going to your personal experience, you haven't had a personal experience of SSPX, therefore that affects the reality of the situation.
Yeah.
And not to mention the reality of the situation, but my ability to know the reality of the situation. That's a fundamental deficiency in thinking, right? So that's, I guess, what my point is like that's just a perfect example of sentimentality, and most especially subjectivism, where he's literally saying, I want to look at your experience, right? The subject versus the object, which is the SSPX's canonical status. Those are two separate things.
Yeah.
And that goes for so many different things.
It's
but
also,
that's just a perfect example.
Yeah. Tips for getting married young. I would say it's actually easier getting married young. Like when you're two young people get married, you can then grow together. You're not like trying to merge two established
Yeah. I mean, well,
lives.
I wasn't that young when we got married because I was 29.
Yeah, but I just mean in general.
Yeah. First of all, this is actually something, hilariously, that I have changed a lot on. And a big reason, I would say, is because I grew up in New Jersey. So at the time, it was like, when I grew up, it was like 60% of New Jersey was Catholic, basically. Now, of course, we've had a migrant invasion, both legal and illegal. And it's no longer that way. But, so like my point is everybody's culturally Catholic.
Yeah, in New Jersey.
In New Jersey. At the time, like, so when I was growing up, it was literally like all, Irish and Catholic kids.
Irish and Italian.
Yeah. Irish and Catholic. Yeah. But yeah, Irish and Italian kids. Of course, there's all sorts. But so that was like a ton of what we have. And so everybody I knew growing up was Catholic. I would say most went to church, like box checking church. But like nobody stayed Catholic. And I went to a Catholic high school. Actually, I went to the oldest Catholic high school in New Jersey. It was like 1856. It was founded by a bishop he was the nephew of St. Elizabeth Ann Seton. It was called Seton Hall Prep.
That's so cool.
And but it was abysmal. Like the faith formation abysmal. The spiritual life non-existent. The number of guys who I went to high school with that were Catholic, I'd say probably like 85 to 90% were Catholic. Meant nothing. So in my mind, I was like, real Catholics don't exist. And it's, like, truly.
Yeah.
And I thought that it was like literally luck of the draw if you stay Catholic as you get older. Like as I thought about having kids and whatever. And then similar, so I went to an all boys school, but like same thing, right? It's like the girls I knew who were Catholic was not Catholic. So, like I was kind of like, oh, I'm not gonna date. Like, you know what I'm saying? It wasn't dating as for marriage or anything like that. It was actually at Franciscan when I saw all of these families. Not every single one had a perfect family or whatever, but it's you're like, oh, if you raise them right, if you have them in a right environment, then you can go off and like sort of predictably raise your kids Catholic.
Yeah.
So then kind of when I discovered that and especially into tradition where it's like you have all these people who are having your values, I've become much more in the line of if you think you're going to be married and you find somebody, even in like high school, yes, wait till, the age of majority or whatever, but it's like get married young, make the decision.
Yeah.
And for the reasons that you're saying, right?
Yeah.
Especially, right? Like you're young, first of all, you don't, like you have concupiscible desires and marriage is supposed to protect you from that. Late teens to early 20s is the worst time for everybody, especially for men. It's just like you're not giving that up, and struggling through that. And then also you're not, causing issues and bringing on baggage for your marriage.
Yeah.
And so I think that is the best thing to do. So as far as tips, it would be open to it, be around people who have the same values.
Yeah, good community.
Yeah, and especially people who do like know parents, right? Like so you want your parents to know their parents and things, especially at that age. I would suggest doing like courtship in the traditional sense where it's like if you're the man, you're talking to the father and saying, I'd like to court your daughter. It's very much about building that friendship first. You don't want to do typical dating. Actually, there was a girl that we were giving advice to that recently broke up.
Get a little bit closer, sorry.
She recently broke up with a boyfriend of 2 years. She thought he was a holy guy. He moved. She didn't want to go. She wanted to be around her family. Both reasonable things. It's very painful. Hopes that she would get together with him soon, or not get together with him soon, I should say. There were hopes there that maybe they would get back together, etc. But it doesn't seem that it's right. That actually is a perfect example of something where you should not be getting to that point.
Yeah, that should have been an early conversation is what you're saying.
Well, not only, yes, it should be an early conversation, but the point of courtship is protecting the heart. Like, you should not be getting that deep into somebody from a emotional perspective.
Yeah.
And according to her, they were chaste. But you should not be getting that deep with somebody in a dating perspective without getting married. Like, the courtship should be that you're becoming friends. You're identifying. Of course, there can be, like, the affectionate love, right? You're identifying the values, that you want the same things, that you're willing to make that decision. I think the last time we talked, was it here where we said, like, our view of marriage very much is, it was with Lila, it's like you make a decision, right? Like,
Layla.
you make a decision. Yeah, Layla. Whoops. Yeah, with Layla is you make a decision and you make the commitment, right? Like, you obviously want to know some things ahead of time, but like, that's what courtship should be. That's the point of the father being involved in that sense, is like he's guarding the heart of his daughter. And so you shouldn't be getting to the point where you are dating for so long that you're so in love that you should have been married a year or two ago.
Yeah.
And then you break up.
Yeah, you have these repercussions that are so difficult to
and then you have like
with.
heartbreak and things like this. You should not be getting that deep into it, right? Before you know, because you really do know. And just as an example for us is like, right, so we were, I don't know, like friends or friendly, whatever you want to call it, for like 5-6 weeks.
Sorry.
You get to know each other, spend a few times, and then you're like, okay, so we're getting married then. You know what I'm saying? It's not going to happen.
4 weeks.
Yeah, whatever. But it's not going to happen exactly like that for everybody, or what, But the point is that you talk about certain things, you get on the same page, you enjoy each other's company, then you have to just make a decision.
Yeah, something, because I might be wrong, but I think the person asking this is asking for herself, maybe, that she's the young person who wants to get married. Yeah. But something that Kyle kind of like helped me with a lot when we started dating and then we were going to get married is he was very much like, he helped me not care what other people were going to think. Not that I wanted to wait a long time to get married. I didn't at all. I wanted to get married right away. But things with like, I stopped taking classes and, stuff like that.
Yeah.
And you kind of have to just realize that those things don't matter. You just have to go for it.
Oh, yeah. You're saying like if somebody's like, oh, you're getting married so young and whatever.
Because it's still widely unpopular, I would say.
No, that's a fair point.
So, yeah, it's just like you have to go against the grain in a sense.
Yeah, I would say the big thing is...
People also come around very quickly.
Yeah, I would say the big thing is that you have to... Even it's your own parents, because I don't know your situation. But there are people who just like, they don't get it, right? Like, they don't have a truly Catholic outlook on things. Now, what I would say is, if you're somebody who your parents are very devout, and you say, I want to get married young, and they say... If they're against it in principle, that's a different story. But if your mom and dad were to say to you, hey, listen, I don't think you're ready.
Yeah.
That's a perfect example where it's like, take their advice. They're adults. They know what they're right. But if they're like, no, you're not getting married at 18, that's a completely different thing, right? Like, that is just essentially a boomer belief, right?
Yeah.
It's like that.
Yeah.
This thinking as men do, not as God does, is what's happened there.
And something we talked about early on too was like, and this is kind of when you started changing your mind more with, because I think we used to say like, oh, our kids won't date till they're this age or this age, especially the daughters. And then you kind of changed your mind where you were like, actually, no.
Yeah.
For all the reasons you just said, and I always like what you've said too, where we're raising our sons to be men at a young age.
Yeah.
So, like, it's not going to be the kind of thing where they're goofing off for 4 years in college, being little boys. We're going to raise them to be men who can be able to make the decision to get married or go to whatever it is.
Right.
At the age
not to say they won't go to college.
Right,
but
right.
It's like not the Peter
But
Pan.
yeah, but like they will be. I mean, that's our goal, right?
Yeah.
We're not saying like this is what it's going to be, but that's how we're going to be raising them.
Right.
And I think of like that's not really the majority of people. No, they're not raising their sons to say when you turn 16 or 17 or 18, we'll be okay with, you know, you. Yeah. I mean, it depends on the kid, but like, yeah, if you're going to make the decision to do this or to do that or whatever it is. But there are like, I think of Anna and Joe.
Yeah.
Like
they're a great example.
My cousin Anna, her now husband, grew up, he's one of 7 or 8, I don't know, but he grew up out in the country. So they weren't in like, they were almost kind of in a bubble out there living in the country. They didn't go to school. They were homeschooled. They all got jobs so early on. They worked on the farm. They did all of these things. And this is all of his siblings, by the way. They're all, like his little brother David has been buying his own livestock since he was like 12. Like crazy, like stuff like that. Like, and that's what I mean by, I'm not that, go buy your first pig when you're 12. But, it's that kind of thing. And then he met Anna. Anna was 15. He was
16, I think.
16 or something like that. And they had to date a little bit longer because they had to turn 18, or he did at least.
I think she was 18 and he was 19 when they got married.
Yeah, but she had like just recently turned 18. Anyways, but he was fully ready. And so was she to get married. And they had all the things that you said, all of the benefits of getting married young and not, just skipping over all of the stuff that you do normally bring into modern day relationships. And they have 7 kids and they're just best buddies. And it's just has been really cool to watch. Well, he stole my best friend when I was only 15, but whatever. They're the best.
It's a good point. And, it's funny because like you can kind of see in him, he's like, oh, I skipped out of my early 20s. So he's like having a mullet, and he's been saying for the last year, oh, I got to cut this mullet.
Going to the bar with my brothers.
Yeah.
All in
no, but in all seriousness, like, and that's the other thing, right? So he's, I think, 32, 33. She's 30.
She's 31.
Yeah. Almost 32 or whatever. Whatever it is.
She just turned
maybe he's
31.
just 32.
Yeah.
But, so you have 7 kids by that age versus, way later. Mm-hmm. And then, however many kids they end up having. But, like their oldest, Penny, she's what, 12?
11.
Or about to be 11. Yeah. So, it's like that sort of thing where they're going to be freaking in their 30s with grandkids.
Yeah. Well, that's what I was going to say is there's such a weird gap for women when they like know they want to get married. Yeah. And have kids, but they're like done with high school or even college and they don't know what to do because they don't want to go get a career. Yeah. Just to stop the career. And so that's another thing. Like just makes so much more sense.
Yep.
From that perspective as well. Do you practice NFP? If so, what method has worked well for you guys? NFP as in natural family planning. We have never done NFP. Okay, also, just to clarify, NFP is used either to achieve or avoid pregnancy. There are 2 sides of it. When we were trying to have our next baby after cash-in, I did do some tracking. I never said I was doing NFP because I do feel like when you say I'm using NFP, people automatically just, like, the connotation is that you're using it to avoid pregnancy. Right. So I would never say that I've used NFP to try to get pregnant. I've done some tracking to try to get pregnant. But we've never used NFP because we've never had a grave reason to use NFP, nor do I think we ever really would prefer to use NFP, even if we did.
A lot of people,
this is a big thing.
Yeah, will accept. Meaning, when I say people, I mean your, like the run-of-the-mill sort of Novus Ordo Catholic, for whatever you want to call it, like modern Catholic, Orthodox even. Not Orthodox, the church, but Orthodox Catholic. They'll say, oh yeah, for grave reason, this or, and you have to discern this or that or the other thing. This, again, is important to remember what grave matter is, okay? And this is where, again, precision in thinking And the ability to make those sorts of distinctions is important. For instance, again, in that clip, we had a friend who said, he's like, oh, all these conditions, have to exist for something to be grave or whatever, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And he was confusing grave matter with mortal sin. Mm-hmm. So we have to remember that the gravity of a thing is objective, right? So like for something to be grave, the actual matter has to be in and of itself grave, right? Like, so that's objective. Now, how it applies to you subjectively is different, right? So like, for instance, if we think of a mortal sin, right, there's the three conditions: full knowledge, full consent, grave matter. So can you commit a sin that is of grave matter, but it's not necessarily a mortal sin? Yes, because those other things, that's the subjective aspect of it. That's the subjective aspect of the mortal sin versus the grave matter, right? So like if you're saying you're making that's a grave accusation, right? What you're saying is that is an accusation that's very serious in its matter, right? But does it mean it's a mortal sin, like sin to do it? No.
Yeah.
So same thing with NFP. What we're getting to is what you hear a lot is we're going to discern this. You, me, and God are going to discern if this is a grave reason for us. The issue is that if something is grave matter is objective. That is an objective reality. Now, how it subjectively applies to you is different. That's the sort of thing that can change person to person, obviously. So, for instance, a common example would be if having another child will negatively affect the current parenting of your existing children. That would be a grave reason. Okay? Now, then subjectively is how you'd have to look at it and say, okay, so what do we mean by that? So like, for instance, let's just say you've had 4 kids in 4 years. And you're in a position where you can barely handle it. You're going nuts or whatever. You can't, you can barely keep your head above water. You're like, I don't want to say mental health, but like you're mental in the sense of like stress, overwhelm. Maybe that's causing you to be short with your kids. You're having difficulty handling it legitimately. Yeah. Okay. Assuming all that. That is an example where you can discern that given this grave matter of that situation, it can be licit in that case, subjectively speaking, for you to say, okay, this is a situation where it would make sense for us to avoid pregnancy. Okay. Now, as far as NFP goes, it has always, it's again, one of those things where it's like, it's always been more of an allowance, right? Like saying like, okay, this is something that if you get in those situations, you can do. Right. The optimal thing or what you should do would be to actually abstain. Again,
not just during the fertile window, but
correct,
completely.
So this is a perfect example of like when we talked about in our coming to tradition episode where we're like, doctrine hasn't changed, but the way things are looked at has changed, right? Like, so for instance, it used to be very clear marriage is for the purpose of procreating, educating, and raising children. It's the unity of the spouses and the procreation of children, right? So that change in focus can make it difficult to see why should I have to abstain. And of course, again, have to isn't the right way to say it probably, or why, why is that traditionally taught? So like if you go to a lot of traditional priests, when they counsel you, like when somebody's like, I don't feel like I could have another kid, a lot of traditional priests will counsel you to abstain, versus NFP. So the issue, because what they'll say, right? So what the church will say, and again, what's objective is that NFP can very quickly beget a contraceptive outlook or mindset. Mm-hmm. And contraceptive in the sense that you are desiring the pleasure of a thing without the purpose of a thing, right? And again, what makes that convoluted? What makes it convoluted is, again, the ends of marriage be like changing the focus. So in the average Joe, or whatever you want to call it, what ends up happening is people discern things that are not grave into grave. Mm-hmm. And they unknowingly, a lot of times, create a contraceptive mentality for themselves, right? Mm-hmm. And they think, since they're doing NFP and they've talked about it to each other, that no matter what, like, as long as they're doing NFP, it's fine.
Yeah.
So there are two, and I want to be clear, there's two groups. There's one group who will say it's fine no matter what. Mm-hmm. And then there's another group who will say it's not fine no matter what. You don't want to have a contraceptive mentality, but it's between you, God, and your husband, or between your wife and God, as to like what's grave for you. So for instance, people get married and one of them's going to medical school or dental school or whatever, and they say, well, we want to be more financially stable before we have kids. That's an example of where objectively that's not grave. Mm-hmm. Like from an economic perspective, like it would have to be economically destitute, meaning like you literally have the inability to provide for the child.
Which is almost never.
Almost. Especially in developed countries,
Yeah.
Okay. So just another, like other examples would be, and by the way, disclaimer, I guess you could say, is like, no one's talking about your particular situation. And again, just like everything, if something pricks you, inward is where the eyes should be cast. Mm-hmm. So that would be an example. Or like, oh, we don't want to have kids right away because we want to spend our first year of marriage together. Or we want to, whatever.
Yep.
We want to get to know each other. We want to, this, that, or the other thing. Not that it's not good to want to get to know each other better, spend more time with each other, etc. But it is not a grave reason to forego pregnancy. And by the way, again, this is the sort of thing that happens when the church, in the way that it's always been taught, it was always taught the end of marriage is primarily the procreation of children. And then it was just changed 70 years ago. And again, we're told that the church had it wrong the whole time. It developed just as the liberals were getting power. Give me a break.
Yeah.
That is the thing about NFP, I guess.
Yeah. I think a really interesting point too is if you're operating off the fact that the reason you cannot get pregnant is truly grave matter, for example, like a health condition. Yeah. Like, oh, I have cancer, and if I get pregnant, I can't treat the cancer. Like that kind of.
Yeah,
true.
Of course.
So my point is, if something is truly so grave that having a baby or getting pregnant and having a baby would be absolutely disastrous and really have horrible effects on something. Yeah. Wouldn't you think that complete abstinence is the correct path anyways, since, as all of the NFPers say, when you charge them with, well, that, NFP is Catholic birth control, they say, well, there's always the chance you can get pregnant using NFP. Right. Okay, so then if you have a really, really grave reason that you cannot get pregnant,
that's good.
You shouldn't be using NFP, you should be abstaining.
Yeah, no, that's good. That's good reasoning for sure.
And do you want to add anything to that?
Well, no, I just wanted to say too, though, is another thing is like, again, the marital act is a good and holy thing within marriage. I think, again, this is something that, again, has been only recently developed.
Yeah.
That this is somehow like the holiest thing that can be done within the marriage, which is just totally and utterly insane. That the marital act is the most, like, so and just as a perfect example, so King St. Louis IX, when he was canonized, one of the things that they used as evidence of his heroic virtue is that he and his wife only came together when they were trying to conceive. When she was pregnant or post or whatever. And by the way, it does not mean that it's wrong in any sense of the word to do it. It's good, but it's like and things can be good and more good. By the way. Just right. St. Paul even says, it's like, you of course can be married, and it's good to be married, but it's better to not. Right.
To not be married. To like.
Correct.
And by not be married, you mean to become religious.
Right.
Or to
and
become,
then those who are married to act as if they're not married.
Yeah.
Again, this is how the church has viewed it. And so my spiritual director it's a perfect example where he says, of course that's better. It's like it's not only ridiculous, but he goes, it's even ridiculous when, in these situations, people will say, I'm trusting God, because as you said, right, it's like, oh, there's that chance, but like where there's really such a little chance.
If you're using it effectively, then it's a small chance that you still conceive.
Right. But the other thing that he said about it, he goes, like if you're not using it, you actually are trusting God more than if you are. Right. Because it's the same thing as because again, grave reason aside, if the contraceptive mentality is there, it's like you are making those decisions.
Right. If it's 99% effective, then maybe your trust is 1%.
Yeah. No, I mean, that's a good point. But it's also, I mean, and again, this is not to say that somebody's holier than another person or whatever for that sort of thing, but to truly leave things in the hands of God for whatever, there actually is an element of greater trust.
Yes. And honestly, I feel bad. I really, truly do feel bad, especially for women, because it's similar to the whole divorce and annulment thing where it's like, it's the church who's failing and not, making these things so accessible and so easy. It's like the prominence.
You have to do
it's
NFP.
Horrible.
For pre-can, it's like you have to do it.
Right. And not only that, but like the prominence of NFP in people's marriages, I honestly feel bad for them because the lack of like freedom and the amount of stress that comes along with doing NFP is so, like, I see women all the time in these Catholic Facebook groups who they're looking for advice. They're looking for help. They don't know what to do because, first they want to, have 3 years between their babies, or the husband doesn't want, but there's only two days then of open time in the month where they can be together, and the husband struggles with that. And it's like, I was just talking to someone recently who was saying, before we could decide to do this, we had to meet with my instructor. And I'm like, so there's like 3 people in this marriage and like the planning of your family. Like that's not
right.
And again, if you do have grave matter and you do decide to use NFP, like you said, it's not sinful and it's licit, and you need an instructor to help you, that's fine. Yeah. But lots and lots and lots of couples are going into marriages thinking they have to have a method. They have to be extremely proficient in the method. They have to have an instructor too, because if they have a question or, it's like, just imagine you don't have any of that.
Yeah.
You can be with your husband when you want to be with your husband. You are with your husband, or you're with each other when you want to be with each other, which is natural. That's how it should be. That's literally how God designed it with the woman's hormones, to want to be together when you're fertile.
Yeah.
And then if there is a grave reason, you abstain completely. For me, that honestly seems like a heck of a lot easier in terms of you're not worrying about the charts and the signs and the when can we and when can't we. And it's like, I think it would be kind of a beautiful time for the couple to become sanctified together
Yeah.
for this reason. So anyways.
Well, it does say that it's good for couples to abstain for a while, to pray and things. Well, and of course,
so that's a good opportunity.
just practically speaking, that's a good argument in terms of that. And then what was I going to say? I forget.
Do you want me to go back to what I was saying, and then you can? I was talking about the freedom in.
Yes, I do
NFP.
remember.
Yeah.
And the other thing, though, is that NFP can also throw off issues of the marital debt, right? Because like a lot of people want to ignore the marital debt, which is a true thing that's been completely de-emphasized.
Yep.
And it can be odd where it's like we're supposed to be abstaining. Well, the issue is though that if somebody is legitimately, for lack of a better term, like calling in the marital debt, either side, you are not allowed. It is sinful
to deny it.
And so I think that's another kind of practical aspect where that can get in the way, because you think you have these, however many days and whatever.
This outside party is telling you that I just can't fathom like this situation that you're saying here, where one is saying like, yes, what's the right way to word it? Wants to be with his wife, and the wife is saying, our instructor said we can't, like that kind of situation.
And even if you're not using an instructor, even if you're like, well, my chart, I can't, it's like, that's not how it works.
Right, but the instructor part just makes it, my only point was that's even more wild, because it's like it's a third party person who has this like say on your marriage.
No, it is crazy. And I think, again, what goes back to being crazy is like, first of all, in my mind I'm thinking it's like it'll be so funny, the backlash. It depends, right? Because like some people but the backlash that we'll get for this sort of thing, and the church, it's like
we've heard it all.
We've heard all, and again, it's like the arguments don't stand up, and it's like, who am I listening to? I'm listening, like, who are they sending me? They're sending people who are like, the theology of the body, and I go down my body saying, I love my lips, I love my nipples, I love my belly. I never showed you that. You
did, but it's I'm
not going to say the person who says it, but it's ridiculous. Like, and these are the people who I'm supposed to believe like know what the church. And again,
it's the picking the one thing that. Sorry, do you want to finish what you were saying?
Yeah, it's just like I'm sick of being told. And it's like the same sort of gaslighting that happened with COVID. It's like, I can see that what you're saying is different than what it always was.
Yeah. And that's...
Moral principles can't change.
Right.
Can't.
Right.
So...
the way it's presented can change.
Yeah, the ends of marriage can't change.
Yeah.
And by the way, the other thing is like the confluence of events, okay? And this goes with feminism too. When the evil feminists are starting to get a bigger hold on society, that's when the church figures out what what the role of women is really, or when
the church is infiltrated more than ever.
When the country is becoming more sexually free, like in the 60s, not the country, the world really. Like when these things are happening and all these changes are happening and like liberalism is rampant within the church, this is when the church really figures out like the true, like develops these things. Like what are we talking about?
Not the thousands of years of tradition.
Yeah, exactly.
I love when you get fired up.
Well, I mean, it's just it's so insane on its face. And of course, it's not to blame the individual people. It's just that's why people have the reaction when they find the traditional faith like of all time, which is, I've been ripped off. Where was this? And
it can sound crazy and extreme too, like, what? I don't want to do that, but it's the same thing, like the freedom in the rules. Yeah. If you know what I mean, like it actually makes you happier when you practice things the way they're supposed to be.
Right. Well, because it is true that happiness comes from the practice of virtue, right? So when you practice your virtues, you become happier.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's just what I was gonna say. It's like It's mind numbing.
Yeah, it's frustrating too when you like people will often will say, but this one person said this one thing in this one letter.
Yeah.
And it's like, so you think that one thing that you were able to find and pick out negates all of these thousands of years of tradition. That's not
exactly. It has to be interpreted in light of tradition.
Yeah. I love that the wedding dress that my mom wore style is coming back. It's like the
puffy
full skirt, puffy sleeve. Look at this girl's dress. It looks so cute. Look at that.
Oh yeah, wow.
It looks so good. Like, it's a little more refined, but it's the same exact style. Like, this is what all of our moms wore when they got married.
Yeah. This was the trad line. Blooby dooby dooby doop. Isn't that what you do?
I just say thanks for listening.
That's right. The sound is like the little recorded thing.
Yeah. Well, how does it go?
I don't know.
All right. Thanks for listening. Don't forget to subscribe. Check out our other videos if you like this kind of awesome, legit content.